Welcome to the Collective Genius Podcast, the show for real estate investors who are looking to scale.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back into the Collective Genius Podcast, that podcast that you listen to every single week to grow and scale your real estate investing business. I am honored, as always, to have you in. I'm also honored to have our guest here today, a CG member, Mr. Bryan Sekine. How are you? Welcome in, my friend.
Thank you so much. Doing great.
I'm excited to tell your story, my man, because you are completely different than a lot of the guests that we've had, and you have a unique skill. I always ask the question of, what did you want to be? That's how I kind of start these podcasts off. We call it Conversations with a Genius, Conversations with Entrepreneurs, and you have probably the most unique background of anyone that's been on the show so far. I'm so excited to tell that story. But before we get into that, you are a member of the Collective Genius for a reason. You are someone that helps people become local authorities in their marketplace for real estate investing. So let's start by telling people not necessarily where you invest in, but what it is that you do.
Yeah, sure. So I am the CEO and co-founder of a company called Fox and Owl Marketing. We are first and foremost an SEO agency. So our bread and butter is providing search engine optimization services to real estate investors, and we help investors nationwide do exactly as you say, become a local authority in their market.
Great. We'll get into all the details of SEO and, how, a lot of people focus on the SEM part of it, PPC translation, but may not. And you and I have had this conversation. I feel like this is one of the gaps that a lot of real estate investors have in their businesses of making sure they're a local authority through the organic side, the search engine optimization side. So we'll get into all that of how you help real estate investors across the country become that local authority. But before we do, I got a couple of follow-ups there. First, the Fox and Owl. Well, what's the story behind that?
Yeah, so my wife and I are the ones that originally started the agency. And so I like to joke that she's the fox and I'm the owl.
Which I'm guessing there's a little bit more to that story of why is she the fox and why are you the owl?
Yeah. So back in the day, my wife and I both used to be really into video games. And so
Okay.
her gamer tag was always the freckled fox.
Okay.
And back in the day, a lot of my friends used to say that I was a night owl. So instead of going out to parties and stuff, I'd do my best work really late in the evenings. So I was always referred to as a night owl. And so when I started a business, we were like, well, I've always kind of had this like owl sort of, I don't know, like image. And then she's always had this fox image. And so it'd kind of be cool to have Fox and Owl be the agency name.
It works. This is a common thread, and for entrepreneurs listening to this, you have been in those nights where you're working on your craft, working on your business, where everyone else is out having a great time. Like those are the people that become top-level entrepreneurs typically. There's a common thread there of working while everyone else is out playing. Not to say that you shouldn't have fun, but there's definitely that common thread. And being a night owl, I'm actually the opposite, man. I've always felt like I'm even when I was in my, teenage years, I always felt like I was 20 years ahead of where I should be age-wise. I've always been the opposite. Like if I were studying for an exam in college, I was the person that said, all right, I'm going to get a good night's sleep. I'll wake up at 4 a.m. to study for 2 hours for an 8 o'clock class or whatever. But staying up I can get up early. It's just staying up late I was the exact opposite. So they both work. It's just that one worked better for me.
Yeah, definitely. My wife's the same way. She loves to wake up early, hates to stay up late.
That's, I guess it's just opposites attracting that same, because it's the same for my wife and I. I actually had to bring her over to my side because, especially with kids, I pass that along to our kids. They like to get up early as well and get things done. So she has to get up now. And sometimes, as my youngest says, Mom, when we stay up late, Mom likes to sleep in. You didn't meet Mom before before you were born. All right, so let's get into it. You are in this space doing SEO. specifically for real estate investors. But obviously that's not what that's not necessarily what you want it to be. So part of this journey conversation, I always start off with, what is it, Bryan, that you want it to be? When you were thinking about, young Bryan was like, I'm going to go into this, and at the highest level, what was that?
At the highest level, I wanted to be an artist. So both of my parents were artists when I was growing up, professionally. So mom was an art teacher. My dad was a professional in fine art, specifically for doing airbrush designs back in the 80s, before Photoshop existed. So he was the one that was doing this cool airbrush designs on motorcycle tanks and the hood of cars and billboards, skyscrapers, all that. And so growing up, we had a really creative family. And I thought, okay, I want to be an artist. Like my cousin's a professional violinist. She's famous for that. Like with art runs on both sides of the family. But growing up, my family always said, don't be an artist, right? Don't be a starving artist. It doesn't pay the bills. It's hard for clientele. It's hard to make a living. You're going to be a broke artist for the rest of your life. And so growing up, I always felt compelled to be creative, but always felt like the medium was what was off, right? Musicians struggle to be successful. Fine artists struggle to be successful. And then one day I discovered culinary arts, and that changed everything for me, because this was an avenue where there's a clear track to success, right? And at the same time, if you were doing like finer cuisine, you had the ability to be creative. And so I thought, okay, I want to do this. And I started going to college, and I needed a job like freshman year. Had some scholarships, had some grants, that covered most of it, but I wanted a little bit extra spending money. So I walked around this shopping complex right next to my apartment, and I found a sushi restaurant. And without even having like a now hiring sign available, I just walked in and said, hey, I'm half Japanese. I can say the Japanese names of half the fish in this case right now. Will you hire me? And they were like, well, that's pretty audacious. But as it happens, one of our chefs walked out last Friday. So can you start today, tomorrow? I was like, yeah, I can start today if you want. I said, okay, great. Let's get in touch with the owner. We'll get you some paperwork filled out and you can start today. And so I started that job, and I immediately fell in love with it. Sushi was like my new calling. I read about it. I obsessed about it. It became just such an integral part of my life. And it helped to reconnect myself with my culture and my background. And so I did that for years and years and years. And about 2 years in, someone came and sat down at the sushi bar, and they started asking me tons of questions while I was making their food. And so I would just start explaining it to them. And they said, man, you're really good at explaining some of this stuff, like why people study for so long to make the sushi rice and why they cut the fish a certain way. They're like, would you ever consider teaching? Like, if I paid you, would you come to my house and do like a little private sushi class for us? And I was like, I never thought about it, but sure. And so we set a date, and then I came over with, my sushi knives and kits and everything. And we got to work, teaching this lesson. And they thought, this was great. We should have you out for like a dinner party. We'll invite some friends, have like a double date. And I was like, okay, let's do that. And so as time goes on, I get more and more of these requests. Word kind of gets up that there's a sushi chef in Oklahoma City that will do private dinners and catering and little sushi lessons. And at one point, someone said, hey, have you ever thought about putting recipes online, like starting a website? And I was like, no, it never even occurred to me. Is that something
you need to, if you don't have any contact with these people, you need to make sure that you are thanking them, because they all helped you become an entrepreneur. And you had no idea that you were going to do all these things, but these people kept giving you great ideas, and you kept running with them.
Yeah, I should reach back out. But yeah, they kind of inspired me to take this like one step further, take it a little bit outside of the restaurant space. And so at some point, I started teaching myself how to design websites, and I stumbled across this like tiny little like cheap online course. It's like, learn how to be discovered online. And it started teaching me kind of the basics of, back then I had no idea what it was, but now I know this to be keyword research. Sure. You're looking up topics that people are searching, and you're finding the search volumes, you're creating content kind of based around that. And so I built my website, started getting my feet wet with SEO, and then it really started to take off. And so at the time, maybe this was like 2009, 2010, I've got this website going. I'm doing a couple of like private gigs on the side, working full-time as a sushi chef. And then at night, building my website out, learning more about SEO, learning how to market this as a business. And then one day, someone says, hey, you should make videos on this YouTube platform. because 2008 YouTube was out, but it wasn't not like what it is today,
Right.
So at the time, not many people were doing it. It was mostly like how-to videos and how to change the oil in your car or something. And so I thought, oh, okay, maybe I can make some content, some tutorials and stuff. And I looked up how to make a California roll. And back then, when you typed it in, it had all the suggested searches and stuff. But when you clicked on it and saw the results, it would show you how many results it found. And I distinctly remember when I typed in how to make California roll, there were 600,000 search results that popped up, like different videos. And I thought, there's no way that my video would ever be found amongst the 600,000. But I talked to a couple friends, they coached me through it. They're like, oh, all you have to do is make a better video than what you see show up on page 1. And so I watched those and I learned that yeah, this guy was obviously a professional sushi chef. He's classically trained, but he had no personality in front of the camera. He had no idea how to explain what it is that he was doing. So second video, it's like, oh, okay, this guy is clearly not a professional sushi chef. He's cutting all kinds of corners, making all kinds of mistakes, but he's got a great personality in front of the camera, knows how to explain stuff, speaks directly to the audience. Like that much is clear. Started taking notes. Third guy, kind of a combination of the two, but wasn't really great either way. So I thought, okay, I'm going to make a video. I'm going to do it better than everyone else. I'm going to take the notes that I saw, and then I'm going to just produce a high quality piece of content. And then, 2 weeks later, filmed it, edited it, published it online. I took that video and I embedded it in my website. And then one day I just started getting all these notifications and emails saying, hey, there's new comments left on YouTube video. There's new subscribers on YouTube channel. And it really started taking off. And then within about 90 days, it became ranking #1 for how to make a California roll. And it blew my mind. And I thought, oh my gosh, I think I'm onto something here.
Got something here.
Hundreds of thousands of people watching these videos now. And I started getting more comments on my website. And so then my website started getting more traffic, started ranking for more keywords. And I started getting emails coming in my box from that forum on the website. And I was like, this is crazy. There's something to this, just making content, making videos, combining the two online. But it started kind of exponentially growing outside of me having to publish a new article every week or, constantly promote this on social media. And so I was like, it's really kind of gained some momentum of its own organically. And I'm not even having to really do much to it. I just update it once a month, basically. And then one day this company emails me and said, hey, we saw your YouTube videos. We found your website. We love your recipes. We'd love to fly you out to New York City to teach our company how to roll sushi. I was like, sure, yeah, that's no problem. I mean, with right. I was like, you'll have to pay for all the expenses, and then I've got a fee, and you guys have to buy the ingredients. Yeah, that's fine. We'll even buy all the sushi knives. And I was like, well, how many people are you wanting to teach? Well, we want to teach 10 people at a time. We have 40 people total. And I was like, you want to buy 10 sushi knives? And I said, yeah, we'll cover all the expenses. We'll fly you up, put you up in a hotel, whole 9 yards. And I was like, wow, it's kind of a big deal. And then I was like, wait, you guys can't find a sushi chef in Manhattan, in the Big Apple, that's willing to do this for you? I was like, that's like the mecca of Michelin star sushi restaurants outside of Japan. It's New York City. And they said, oh yeah, they're too pretentious. They don't have time. They don't want to do it, so, but we found your content. We like your website. And they kept saying that. And I was like, sure, yeah. And I was like, by the way, what's the name of the company? And keep in mind, this is 2011, maybe, at this point. And they said, oh, so we're a little startup company, but we just got acquired by PayPal. And so you might know us through PayPal, but the company name is Venmo. I was like, never heard of it. So they fly me up there. We do the sushi class. It was great. Venmo really knows how to take care of their staff. They do an awesome job.
Even with 40 employees at the time.
Right, yeah.
Right.
And it was funny because they were like, oh, we'd love to send you a tip, but you have to download the Venmo app for us to do that. And I was like, download an app?
App for money? Yeah, exactly.
Now I Venmo friends all the time, right?
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, it was great. And so after the event, they said, hey, we don't need these 10 sushi knives. We don't need these 10 cutting boards. We don't need all this equipment. You can just have it if you pay to ship it back to Oklahoma City. And I was like, yeah. Easy.
Okay.
Done.
All right. Done.
And so I think I paid $500 in shipping, and they literally sent me home with an entrepreneur kit to just take this and start teaching public sushi classes.
Right.
Just right out of the gate, So I came back, talked to
They funded your business.
Basically, yeah. They did the seed funding. Here's all the equipment. Here you go. And so, but at that point I was like, there's something to this. So I got my job at the restaurant. and started doing like private sushi chef work full time. So I was just doing catering events and private events and all this stuff. But all the while, I still had in my mind that I was going to be publishing content and I wanted to be like a YouTube content creator, a website content creator. But it didn't even dawn on me that like what I was doing was generating this online marketing experience that was gaining way more momentum than I was putting hours into it.
Yeah.
Had far outgrown me personally because I was still a one man show,
Sure.
everything.
But this is what people look for as an entrepreneur, right? This is what they look
Right.
for is as an opportunity to, have something working for you or making you money while you sleep. And you clearly did that in a short amount of time and caught it at the right time for that particular industry. I have to go way back here though,
Sure.
because you buried something here of you walking in. There's a couple things I want to reflect on. Number one, for the young people out there, we used to walk into businesses with a resume and go, "Are you hiring?" I mean, that was a form of, of showing that you were hireable, is just walking into businesses, and clearly that paid off for you. But I have to, you didn't mention anything about having knife skills and knowing how to make sushi when they hired you. Did you know how to do any of that stuff?
Not professionally, so like, yeah, my parents taught me a little bit of it when I was younger, like I had memories of my mom making sushi for like New Year's Eve or for a holiday or something. We'd kind of make sushi at home, but it was never to like the restaurant quality standards.
So did they just start you out on, like a sous chef type of thing where you're just cutting vegetables and things like that? Or did you go right into roles?
Oh no, I spent probably 6 months washing dishes, making
Yeah, okay.
rice, prepping
Okay.
vegetables.
I had to make sure because, like, hold on. I don't care how much experience you had. Just going right into making sushi was not going to be something that anyone, I would think, off the streets would allow you to do.
No, definitely not.
Okay. All right. So this is important because this is going to set up the rest of the story and how you got into real estate investing and helping real estate investors become that local authority through the similar way that you grew this business. So now you are, Venmo's seed funds your business to do parties. You've got the website going. You got YouTube going. What comes next?
Yeah. So at this point, I am doing really well. I've got, all these gigs going on. I'm busy all the time. And then COVID hits and everyone goes into quarantine, no more events, right? I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Right? Like I'm an event-based business.
Yeah.
People can't come to me in person to learn how to do this. I'm out of work. And so I went to go find a job building websites because that was the other skill set I knew how to do, right? Obviously, the restaurant industry was really, really struggling. I didn't want to get back into that during COVID. At the time, we had just had our third child. And so I was like, everything was on the line to pivot and find a way to make it work. I was fortunate enough to find a web design agency that was hiring, and I just so happened to have built my website on the same platform that they were hiring for. And so this was like right before quarantine hit. I was doing a private sushi event, and he said, "Hey, who built your website? It looks really good." I said, "Oh, thank you. I built the website." And he was like, "Oh, did you build it on WordPress and Elementor?" I said, yeah, that's exactly what I did. So, oh, that's great. Well, I'm actually looking to hire someone to help us with that. Would you be interested? And so we talked it through, and I said, "Yeah, let's do it." And so I started building websites for him. And about 2021, I had another publishing company reach out for a book deal. And they said, "Hey, we found your website, your content. We'd love for you to publish a sushi cookbook." And I thought, yeah, why not? Love to, right?
These calls you're getting, man, are all from this content that you've created. This is awesome.
And it was wild. Yeah, I could never have imagined. I never planned for it to do that, right? It just kind of outgrew what it was doing and went into that. And then after we got the cookbook published, the web design agency owner was like, "Hey, I'd love to pay to have you certified as an SEO because we'd love to offer this as a service to all of our website clients. Is that something you'd be interested in?" And I said, "Yeah, actually, I'd be very interested in because my sushi business just got this cookbook deal and I'd love to learn how to get more opportunities like that, And so I said, "Okay, yeah, let's do it." So it took about 6 months to go through the program. Afterwards, we started launching this SEO service. And basically, like 90 days after launching the service, the agency was making double what it was previously just by adding the SEO services. And so I went and talked to the owner and I was like, hey, man, this is fantastic stuff. Do you think I can get a pay raise? And he was like, actually, we need to reinvest and hire more employees. So no, not right now. And I said, ooh, that doesn't feel good.
It's not a good answer.
Yeah. So started kind of thinking about that a little more, talking to my wife, and she said, maybe it's time to go find a different agency, right? If they're not going to give you a pay raise for all the new revenue you brought in. I said, yeah, I'll look around. So I started kind of poking around for new jobs, and I stumbled across this company called Carrot. I was like, oh, that's kind of a quirky name for a company, but I'll check it out. And I said, oh, we make websites for real estate investors. I was like, wow, it's really specific, right? I've never even heard of a real estate investor. And so I scheduled the interview, applied for the job, and Trevor Mock reached out on LinkedIn. And he was like, hey, man, I heard about your story. I'm excited to talk to you about your SEO background. And so interviewed with Trevor and the rest of the team. And he was like, this is going to be great because I haven't hired an SEO person yet for this position. It's always been me casting the strategy and the vision for the SEO strategy for our 7,000 Carrot members. But now I'd like for you to kind of take on that role so I can focus on taking Carrot to the next level. So
Right.
So then I started working with Carrot. And then 2 years later, I'm on the Carrot podcast and doing the coaching calls and the Epic program, the Carrot camps, all that stuff, learning more and more about the real estate industry and all the different ways that investors, can generate leads and dispo deals and stuff. And I was like, man, this is super interesting. But all the while, while on these like coaching programs and podcasts and YouTube videos and stuff, people start emailing me saying, hey, can I just pay you to do SEO on my investor website? And at the time, the answer was always no. I was like, oh, sorry, I can't. I'm a Carrot employee, got 9 to 5, can't really work outside of that. And then one day I just reached out to Trevor and said, hey, man, I've got all these Carrot members that are asking for SEO services. Would it be okay if I go ahead and provide these services on my own time, like nights and weekends kind of stuff? He's like, oh, yeah, sure. That's actually a great idea because there's a big need for it. So as long as it doesn't interfere with your day job, go for it, man. So, okay, great. So I started doing that. And then before I knew it, I think 6 months after starting to say yes, I had 6 clients on the side that I was doing SEO work for. And it got to the point where I was spending more time on the side hustle stuff than during my day job, but it was earning more money than my full-time salary. And so about this time, my wife and I had our 4th kid, and something crazy happened. And she was like, hey, why don't you just do your side hustle full time? Because you have this entrepreneurial spirit. You're great with these clients. I feel like it'd be easy for you to get more customers. And you did a great job with that, with the sushi business. So why not do an SEO agency? I was like, honey, we just had a baby. Like, you sure?
Seems like that's always the best time. Yes.
Yeah. And so again, I felt like we had everything on the line, and I failure wasn't an option. And so I was like, all right, let's do it. If you believe in me and you support me, I'm ready to take that leap. So turned in my 2 weeks, started my own agency, and that was 2.5 years ago today.
Good for you, my friend. You were recommended to me by another former Carrot employee. That shout out to Trevor, man. He allowed you and a couple other people that I know that have their own businesses that he supported. That's a great leader, man. A lot of times you'll have entrepreneurs that, no, I'm not going to allow you to do anything outside of, our business here. But there are great leaders out there that also want the best for their employees. And sometimes that means that they build a business on their own and fly, spread their wings, right? So shout out to Trevor for allowing you to, start that as a side hustle and eventually become a business owner as you have. This industry, as I've mentioned to you several times, it is very niche, but it is one that when you do a great job for one person, they tell everybody. And in your business, you and I have talked about this. To me, the most underrated form of marketing for real estate investors, the 3-legged stool that we talk about a lot on this podcast that works for high-level real estate investors that all 3 are doing at a high level, are PPC, are television, and direct mail. Now there's others that are doing, multiple, but that's really the three-legged stool that most people stand on. And I always say, I have to update that PPC because it's not just PPC, it's SEM and SEO, search engine marketing and search engine optimization that should be on that one of those legs of that stool, specifically because it's the piece that everyone just bypasses. They talk about the search engine marketing part of it, and I get it. Search engine marketing is instantaneous leads. Where search engine optimization, it takes time, especially on those keyword-rich phrases that you want to show up in your geo modifiers on the other side. I'm speaking foreign language to some people, but it's basically when you type in, I want to sell my house in Oklahoma City, that you appear on that organic search as well as the PPC side of things, so the SEM and the SEO side. When you first started doing this for real estate investors, how many of them had ever done SEO?
Very, very few. I would say like 1 in 5. And for the most part, they had like some kind of bad experience.
Sure.
Like they either they worked with an agency that had never worked for real estate investors, or they worked with an agency that only had real estate investors, but they just provided like a specific scope of work. Like they just did backlinks, they just made pages, or they just published content, so.
I think that's where your competitive advantage is. You understand this industry, and I want to make sure that we highlight that. You only, as of right now, only work with real estate investors to make sure that they rank organically high on the keyword searches that real estate investors would want to show up. So somebody else might think of, oh, they're real estate investors, so they would also want retail leads, which some may. But I've had that conversation with people in the past that are not very specific to real estate investors. They don't know the difference between a real estate agent and a real estate investor. So when looking for this service, someone like Bryan is super important because he understands the difference between the type of lead. You're not looking to list the house. You're wanting to buy the house. There is a difference between those two, obviously. And some people say, I'll take the retail leads as well because I have that operation. But if you're only buying those homes, you want someone like Bryan that's very specific, that understands the specific keyword searches in your area or areas. So coming into this, people didn't know or didn't really do SEO. How did you? Because this is a long, not a long haul. This takes more time to get to that first page than it does if you're doing SEM. How do you get investors over that hump of, oh man, it's going to take me 6 months or 90 days, whatever the time frame is, when most times they're looking for instant gratification?
Yeah. Ironically, I have to show them that it's an investment, right? You're not going to get, you're not going to get your ROI within 30 days, so it does take time for that equity to mature. It does take time for the results to come in. But what we say instead is like, hey, if you have a successful operation right now, if you're getting leads, if you're closing deals every month, now you have a marketing budget that you can reallocate into the website. Because what I tell people is like, when you do SEM, when you do TV, when you do direct mail, you have to pay into it and then the results come immediately afterwards. With SEO, you commit a much lower amount of payment, but it takes time for that to come in. Once that does start to come in, if you're ranking positions 1 through 3 and you're not in a competitive market, you don't have to invest in SEO anymore. Not if you don't want to, right? You can build it up. You can let that snowball effect kick in. It can gain that momentum and then it can outgrow your monthly investment. In which case you are getting a disproportionate amount of leads. And then the cost per lead becomes lower and lower and lower and lower the longer you do it, which is the complete opposite of PPC or PPL or direct mail or TV, right? Where you have to pay the same amount or more as time goes on. With SEO, you pay the same amount or way less as time goes on. And
I look at it from the standpoint of when people are on a highway, right? There's highways that run east and west, and there's highways that run north and south. And if you're only spending money on SEM, your billboards are only appearing on that north-south highway that's getting tons of eyeballs. When you're not doing SEO, you're missing all the people that are on the east-west highway, and the eyeballs for that highway people are going by and looking for. You're missing a complete piece of the search, because you may know statistically how many people search from all the things that I've read over the years. It's been about a 50-50 split. Some people click on the paid link, some people click on the organic, some people are, loyal to one or the other. But the reality is that they click on, what they're most comfortable with. And if you're not appearing on the bottom, but you're appearing on the top only, you may be missing that east-west highway. I know that that's something that I talk to investors about all the time. Is that something that you face? Because you don't do PPC, correct?
We do, but it's not a service that we advertise very often. It's something that we like to do as a supplement to SEO services.
I see.
That's our main bread and butter.
Yeah. Okay. If I'm a real estate investor listening to this and I'm not currently doing SEO, other than my highway analogy there, what would you say to that individual? What are they missing out on?
I would say they're missing out on at least half of the traffic. And the reason why I say that, even with AI kind of disrupting a lot of things, something that a lot of people don't also think about is that when you pay for PPC, when you pay for TV or billboards or direct mail, people are going to be searching for your brand. They're going to come up to the website itself. And the thing is that all traffic to a website can benefit your SEO rankings. So if you don't have someone that is positioning your content, that is managing your website to really reap the full benefits of that, then you're already leaving money on the table, because you're paying for this traffic to come and it hits your website. And whether they fill in the form or not, you paid for that traffic to be there, right? And so if you're not benefiting from the lead, at least benefit from the traffic on the website by making sure your site is optimized for organic. Same
What are
TV
they
and billboards?
What are they missing from the AI? You mentioned a keyword there, which I wasn't going to let you get out of here without mentioning AI. How has AI changed what you do?
Oh, it's changed tremendously. Not necessarily in a bad way, but just in a refined way. So AI has dramatically removed the whole top portion of the sales funnel from most websites, and that top portion being the informational component, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when someone has a question, they're going to go to Google, they're going to go to ChatGPT, and they type it in, they're going to get a surface level response, right? And sometimes if they're using Chrome or if they're using Google, the AI overview will populate first and foremost. And the user doesn't really get a choice if they want that AI answer or not. It just appears right at the top, above paid ads, above organic positions, above the Google Map Pack, all that stuff, just boom. And so oftentimes what this has led to is that 40% of people that type in that search term never click through to anything else. They get the answer, then they just close the tab or they close the browser. Journey done, right? So they don't click on anybody's website. They don't click on anybody's ads. They don't do anything else. So that was devastating at first, because a lot of traffic came through to real estate investor sites through blog posts talking about, how do I sell an inherited house with multiple heirs, right? But that content never turned into leads. That content brought traffic to the website, which meant that the keyword rankings went up, which meant that people that were typing in those specific core conversion keywords opted in later on. And so this shifted a lot of things. And for agencies that were not really in touch with the modern trends and what was going on, it seemed devastating. But for us, it said, okay, we need to focus less on informational content, like answering high-level questions, and more on the conversion-based content, right? When someone's already in that decision phase, when they're really motivated to sell, they already know what a real estate investor does, and they're ready to pick between investor A and investor B, right? That's what we want to focus in on and make sure that our clients show up when they're ready to make that decision.
And so this technology, the AI technology, specifically on all of the new search engines, Claude and ChatGPT, I can tell you how it's changed the conversations I'm having at CG. Like, I'll give you for instance. I had purchased a new vehicle that had this indicator that would just go off all the time. But it was specifically, I later learned once I read the manual, or Googled it, that it had this sensor that would go off in intersections in which were being filmed, right? And I could not figure out how to turn this damn thing off, right? So I've got Ren Bartlett in the back. We're going to CG basketball or something like that. This is something that in the past we would just Googled it real quick. He's like, man, it's really loud and it's really annoying. I'm going to help you out right now. So immediately he grabs ChatGPT and he takes a screenshot, sends it to me. We have it fixed immediately. Like that would have never happened a year or two ago. Like that type of search, I know more people that use ChatGPT than they do Google now. And I know that's a small sample size because obviously people still Google every single day. But that's how technology is changing. And I feel like, especially right now in the real estate investing world, having a brand that is established, one that people can find on any of these platforms in which they're looking for. It's going to pull from those people that have understood from day one that ranking high on Google with information, and then the conversion piece of it is super important. And this is where some of those people that are maybe they're just starting to build a brand, like, how do I build a brand? If you're not doing what your business offers, it's very hard to build that authority in a marketplace for what it is that you do, especially if you don't have the 20, 30 years in the industry like some of our members do. If somebody is just starting out and they're like, hey, I've got all these other direct to seller, the three legs of the stool that Leon talked about, I want to start with SEO. What's the best way for them to get started?
I mean, I would say definitely reach out to an agency owner, go ahead and start those conversations, get that ball rolling, because it does take time.
What is that time? Yeah. What is that on the average?
Yeah, on average, it takes 6 to 9 months, I would say, for noticeable amount of traffic and leads to start coming into the website. And then past that, that's when you can really start to expect like consistent results, consistent keyword rankings, and it continues to grow from there.
Right.
So like that's just the initial investment, but every month after that, the work compounds, the results compound, but the cost should stay the same. And then after about 12 months or so, you can make the decision if you want to continue investing or if you kind of want to ease off that gas pedal a little bit. But the leads and the results should be consistent from that point on if the work was being done well.
Got to think about this as a foundation. This is something, if you're planning on being in this business for a long time, the best time to start SEO was yesterday. The next best time is today. And I'm a firm believer in it. I have been since it was introduced to me a very long time ago, understanding how the importance of being on that freeway, of when people are searching for what it is that you do, to educate them and then start the conversion piece of it. If you're not doing it, you need to, like yesterday, and if not yesterday, then today. What is, a couple last questions here, Bryan. What's working for you and your clients right now at a high level? If you could take all the things and say this one or two things, or these things are really working.
Yeah, I would say the first one is structured data. So this is kind of technical, but these are the prerequisites to ranking on platforms like ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity. So you need to have some code on your website that clearly spells out to all these different AI engines what it is you do, who you are, the target demographic you serve, what those services are, so on and so forth. And so this is not something that is new. It's been around for a really long time. But from a classic SEO perspective, it was never a high priority. And so most SEO agencies are aware of it. They know more or less how to implement it, but there are a lot of specific nuances that apply to real estate investors. So I would make sure you're talking to an SEO agency that has experience with real estate investors and they know what kinds of structured data that these platforms are looking for to get you to show up. Second thing, which is really easy for anyone to start implementing, is adding a video to your homepage. So get a video, put it on YouTube, and the video can be filmed on your iPhone if you want, but it needs to be a simple 2-minute or less explainer video talking directly to your target audience about how you as a business owner help people, right? And so a lot of our clients are so deep into their business and so far along in their journey that they forget that a lot of their, target demographic still doesn't know that they don't have to clean the house out, that they can just leave whatever they want in the house and you guys will take care of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so having just a quick video that explains that in layman terms to these individuals really, really helps with conversion. It helps with trust building factors. It helps with ranking and SEO because it's on YouTube, and YouTube's owned by Google. And so the more video content you can produce like that, it helps answer some of the most frequently asked questions and put those videos on your website really, really helps. It goes right back to that sushi video.
That's where I was going. This is going to wrap it up very nicely. Put in a nice roll and serve it, my man. That's the experience. That's why I said it was so important for us to tell your story, to go from sushi chef to helping real estate investors across the country, getting to first page, and ultimately transitioning them through a very evolving time of marketing. Like this time right now, if you're a longtime real estate investor, you need resources like Bryan to walk you through these changes. You've been in the business for 30, 40 years. You may not have made changes to your website for the ChatGPTs of the world. You more than likely haven't, so you need someone like Bryan. And if you're just starting out, this is a great opportunity to steal some market share potentially, because those that have been in the business for a while aren't doing this or haven't done this, haven't thought about it because they've just set that website and forget it for a very, very long time. So it all goes back to that first video that you got seed funding from Venmo to start your business. This is a wild ride, my friend. I told everybody when we first started here that your story is definitely unique. And I guess I have to end it with two things here. We'll get your information out there. But before I get to that, do you still make sushi?
I do. It's much fewer in its frequency than before, but yeah.
Good to know. And we'll have to make sure that I know I mentioned this to you before. We have to do an event at some point when we're in San Diego or something like that. We have to get you. Maybe we don't need you to cook it or make it. We just go to a place where you think is a good recommendation. How about that? All right, Bryan. So let everyone know. I know that there are going to be people listening to this, and man, I have been kicking this can. I need to do it. What's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Yeah, I would say you can always check out our website, which is foxandowlmarketing.com. And then if you're ready to start having those conversations about getting started with SEO, feel free to shoot me an email. It's Bryan, Bryan, at foxandowlmarketing.com.
Love it, Bryan. Great story, my friend. Always good talking to you. You wouldn't think a sushi chef in Oklahoma City would turn into an SEO expert for real estate investors, but that's why this country is so great, my friend. You can start out as a sushi chef and become an expert on this side, helping a lot of people get to the first page and help solve a lot of homeowners' issues, major issues across the U.S. Thank you for your story. Thank you for joining me. Always good seeing you, my friend.
Likewise. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And if you would love to be in the room with members like Bryan, learning from Bryan, because Bryan just doesn't come in and sell his product. He talks to you. If you already have SEO, he'll walk you through it, have conversations, add value. All of our service providers that are in the room are there first to add value. And if you need their services, they're there for you as well. The easiest way to get into that room is to go to our website, explorecg.com. There you'll find all the information that you need. If you're a full-time real estate investor looking to grow and scale your business, we have a community for you. You can find that at explorecg.com. Always a great episode talking to unique stories, the conversations with entrepreneurs. I know all of you can relate to these type of stories, and we look forward to bringing you another one of those great stories next week. Thanks, as always, for listening, and we will talk to you next week.
New episodes every week. To learn more, visit explorecg.com, where real estate investors come to scale.